Welcome back then. In the last video, of course, we'd, laid in all of the basic groundwork of our facial animation here, starting to get all of the little details of the lip sync and, basic head movement and everything else. And what we'll do in this video is we'll run through the rest of it, add in all of the final detailing and polish. Hopefully at this point you'll forgive another little fast forward that I've done here to just add in a little bit more detail here. What you can see that I've done actually is I've just changed a couple of positions on this head, just changed the angle at which he's holding the head at different times, but without, adding anything to it. There's no extra movements added in here. And really it's just from, watching it back a few times and, trying to find a pose that gives a little bit more appeal, really. What you can also see I've done is I've started posing the eyelids here using the old, faithful eyelid controllers to, of course, line up, with the eyeballs for where he's looking and when. And I've also posed the brows as well to give the eyebrows, posing at certain times. And what you'll notice with these is actually that the keyframes I've put on those are pretty much tied in with the keyframes for the head and neck. They're happening at the same points in time there, so really I'm just sort of, fixing his gaze or changing his gaze and the shapes that he's making with his brows, as he takes these different poses of looking at the audience or, looking away and stuff like that. There were certain things we could do differently, like the little spinach here where he's sort of looking down. He's almost got, it's almost an ashamed look, as I say, on his face. You could perhaps do some sort of cute stuff here. You notice that the eyebrow on one side is raised and on the other side it's dipped. You could perhaps do something like having the eyelid up here, and you could perhaps, have this eyelid, this lower eyelid closed. He's got this sort of twitchy eye thing going on. Something like that could be quite cute in this sort of pose. However, of course, we are playing to camera, and from here it doesn't read particularly well because, of course, the angle at which you're seeing these two eyes, you can't really tell that that lower eyelid is more closed than that one. It starts to make his eyes look a little cross-eyed. So in this instance, I wouldn't be using that. I suppose you could, if you wanted, have a little more opening on that eyelid. That doesn't read so badly from here, but no, for the minute, as I've got it, I'm just sort of going to keep them symmetrical like that. We did speak right back at, the foundation section about the twinning of things. Often you will twin eyelids, the left and right sides will be doing the same thing, but not always. Brows, however, are a different story. You'll often have like one brow going up, one going down, the good old Mr. Spock sort of pose. But also at other times you will keep them in line with one another, like here where they're sort of both up and in a bit. And then here when he's doing the, no, like that, not all the time, they're both down. So, the eyebrows sort of cross between twinned and non-twinned. And finally, you can also see at the end where I've done this little head shake. On the last shake, he pulls his head back up there just to look again to camera, to audience, what have you. Consequently then, if we play the whole thing through,
we both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Then we can see, that it is working out here pretty nicely. So where do we go next? Well, we've really got a lot of our stepped keys in now. We've really got a lot of the action in there. We are going to start very soon to need to get to, tweening and, of course, straight ahead motion coming out of this stepped mode. But what I want to do first is, of course, we've got a lot of action and detail going on the mouth. I just want to add a little bit more into the, rest of the face whilst we're at this stage, just as we can play around whilst we're still in stepped. Because, of course, one of the things that you get if you've got some stuff in stepped, you've got other stuff in linear or curve, it becomes harder to, get a good read on what you're doing sometimes. So making sure that we've got things in good places, I find, often helps us first. So what I'm going to do is, as he takes this first breath to come into the wee, I'm going to grab the old eyes there and I'm going to preemptively have him sort of like looking up. Of course, here, glancing across to camera, to audience. And at that same frame, just sort of have the brows just lifting a little bit like this, you know, it's like, yeah, who's over there? What's going on? And we'll simultaneously, you know, change the pose on the eyelids here to sort of work in like that. So we get this little, yep, get this little sort of pre-roll, anticipation if you like. As we come into the both, so somewhere around here, I'll do a little dodge down on the head slightly, so it's like we up, both down. Yep, a little touch there. As we make the E for eat, so possibly somewhere around here, 46, I'll bring the head back up a little bit again. There, so you've just got this little, you know, dodgy, bouncy sort of move on the head before he goes down to the spinach there. And just as we had him do the little, you know, shake of the head over here, yeah, he's saying no, he's stating a negative. When he says we both eat spinach, he's stating a positive, right? So when I'm down in the spinach, I'm sort of going to have him, you know, going, yeah, we do. Oh, so sad. You know, that sort of little shameful confessional sort of mood almost. So spinach. What I'll do here is I'll come in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, give him a little up, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back down again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back down. So he's sort of nodding, yeah, we eat spinach. Then as he comes for the J, I'll just roll the head off to the side a little bit there, turn it away. Okay, this will be again, you know, preemptive. This is anticipation, ready to pull his head back around this way. And that should pretty much give us our tweening for the head and bits of the face there. So let's have a look at it.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Not bad at all.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
And I'm thinking, now that I see that coming out of here, when he comes into the sometimes, maybe actually the head should be leant over like this. Yeah? So you've come from there. Obviously it was leant off to what would be his right. So when it comes back, it's leant over to his left. Let's just see how that sort of looks and plays.
Just sometimes, not all the time.
And again, we go through it.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, I definitely think that, you know, plays out somewhat better now.
Spinach.
What we'll also do is, whilst he's down in the spinach, is to keep his eyes alive. Somewhere around here, I guess. Just as he finishes the word spinach. Spinach. So somewhere around there is I'll take the eyes. Just a couple of frames later, yeah, 68 let's say, and I'll just push them this way, so he's sort of, you know, eye movements, they convey thought, you know, he's gone, spinach, look, let's just sort of see it in actions. That'll help illustrate what's going on, you see, yeah, and of course the eyes, you see, sort of then wind up leading that action on the head. But what I'll do as well is he'll look that way, and a few frames later he'll look back again. So you get this sort of little double dart taking place on the eyes, and we should see. Well, let's watch it actually playing back, shall we?
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
As you can see, very subtle little movement there on the eyes, but it really gives this idea of him thinking behind those eyes. It's much clearer. And so these little eye darts are really starting now to bring him to life.
We both eat spinach.
Really bring the face to life.
Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, lovely stuff. So at this point then, we really are at the stage where we want to start coming out of this stepped motion and going into, you know, tweening and whatnot. And to do this, I'm sort of going to follow the same progression that we've already been using here. So I'm going to be starting out with the mouth. So what I want to do first is I just want to get my jaw controller and take a look for any holds that need to be put in place. So what have we got? Yeah, so we've got the open mouth, so that's a big long drift there. So let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go 5, 6 and hold the mouth there. And then this one, 23, let's copy that key to 21, okay? So it's got a little 2-frame hold of the jaw being open there. You can see, of course, this starts to overlap the actions on the main mouth controls there, but that's okay. Again, overlap. One of the things that we're going to see here is that a lot of the overlap in the face is sort of, just like other places, a difference between when different parts actuate. Remember, of course, we've seen it plenty of times on a character's arm. We have the, elbow and the shoulder arriving at poses at slightly different points in time. Well, what we'll often have on the face is the jaw and the lips will arrive at slightly different points in time. The jaw arrives first and the lips trail ever so slightly behind. So that's why we're looking at the jaw first here. So all of this, these are very tight, obviously not much need for holds in there. Bit of a drift over here. That's going to be, of course, we've had the eat, and then we're going to go into for the p of pinch. So what I might do at this stage is just start to key in a little in between here for the s that's going to become spinach. I'll just sort of give it the tiniest little tweak like that. So there we go, that's our s, eat, sp. And of course we see that we've got a drift between the end of that ch and of course the next move there. We see that our jaw is shifting a little bit. So what I'm going to do is pop in a hold on the jaw. There's the ch. Give it just a 4-frame hold. And then we can see again, there's not an awful lot around here where we need holds to occur. There's not a lot of drift space. Perhaps just a little hold here in the m. So I'll go 2 frames there to hold the m sound, which is of course the last sound he makes, and then we go into the relaxed mouth. With all of that done, then it really is time to, get on to actually taking things out of step and into, actual movement. And something you can see I've done here, which I often find helpful in facial animation, is to take a camera and parent it to the head item or the head bone or whatnot, since of course, the head itself and neck are all moving and rotating around. Having this camera there gives me a nice clean fixed view of just the face. That aside, let's take a look at something very important which you need to know before, of course, you get on and start, tweening and changing curves on things like this. Let's just watch again the actual speech going on here.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, it's looking, pretty nice, even though it's stepped.
Spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
What you can see, however, or what should, hopefully be reading fairly well, is the actual mouth movements. Even though they're stepped and very snappy, they already look pretty good. There's something about the snappiness of the mouth that really lends itself well to, the dialogue. And this is sort of a third cardinal rule in facial animation, especially dialogue and lip sync animation, is the mechanics of the face, specifically the mechanics of the jaw. Now, throughout a lot of the animation that we've looked at so far, there's been this sort of emphasis on keeping things smooth, on having these nice transitions of ease in, ease out, and whatever else going on, right? However, the jaw doesn't really behave that way. It has a tendency to be much more snappy. Of course, it does vary depending on exactly how something is being pronounced or enunciated or whatnot. But here's a good way to discover and understand, the differences and what's really going on. If you take your middle finger and touch it to the tip of your nose, and you take your thumb and you put it under your chin at the base of your jaw, so you're sort of pinching your own face, if you will, then you can try saying something, really smooth and slow, like, oh, I don't know. And, your jaw is moving very smoothly and slowly between these different, poses, these different key sounds. However, if you just talk normally, say, yeah, well, this is going on, blah, 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 you can feel your jaw really clicking up and down. It's very fast. It doesn't really ease in and ease out. It doesn't take these sweeping motions. It makes very jerky open and close motions. As such, even though we've only got stepped keys going on at the minute,
we both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
The very jerky action that we're getting on the mouth here from the stepped keys looks pretty good. And so to get good mouth animation for dialogue, you really do need to replicate some of this. It is one of those, little secrets, if you will. You either know it or you don't. And I have seen plenty of facial animation done where people clearly don't know it, and they go for this same smooth, eased in, eased out motion on the mouth. And you wind up with this very soft, floaty looking facial animation that just doesn't look that natural. So here's how we're going to do it. Let's get our graph up here for the actual jaw control item. We'll get all of the keys here, and to start off with, let's just throw them into linear. Okay, we're leaving everything else stepped. Let's just watch the action of the jaw itself.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
You see, it's a little bit too soft in places. It's, taking too long
just
to move between one pose and the next. The main place, of course, where we're going to see this is on the up-down of the jaw. So we're going to concentrate mainly on the Y channel here. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all of these curves and we're going to throw them to Bezier. This is by far the most useful curve type, at least I generally find, for facial animation. What I want to do just to start off with is just to take and flatten those holds here. Now you can see that just flattens off my Bezier handles in a couple of places where I had overshoot. Gives me a little bit of, pre-work on my Bezier handles there. But most of this we are going to need to do manually. And here, largely, is how we do it. Let's just focus in on this one move here. Okay, so we've got this slow out coming here from this Bezier handle to a slow in, just like a, TCB 1-1 curve. What I'm going to do is take this handle and break it. Okay, so we get this slowing out and then snapping in to the next position. We see that play, bang. Okay, this is obviously his little take a breath before, of course, going into the we, so we can maybe have a little bit of overscoot on it there. But then we come into the w, which is this guy. Once again, I'm going to break that handle there and see you get this very quick changeover of the jaw position there. Then you see we go into the E here. Once again, let's break that handle. And you see the pattern that you're getting. I call this the shark fin. You can have it, upside down, back to front, whatever. But the broad shape that you get as you change from one position to the next is sort of this shark fin shape. I'm going to come out to the next frame here. What's that then? That's the m-p. Oh no, it's the b, isn't it, for both. Now you might want a bit of a hold on that, so perhaps we can put the shark fin the other side. So break that handle up, yep, and grab this one and bring it out like that. Then as we come into the O, we'll bring that handle out there, so that's keeping that bit of a hold over the b sound. And this one again will break like that, so it comes hard and fast into it. Of course, if you see the action that you get there, you see you get this sort of sticky lip thing going on when he's still in the b. His jaw's opening, but his lips haven't come apart yet, but he's straight bang into the O. Then we've got the th there. Once again, we'll slow out of the O, so that sort of holds that shape momentarily, but then we'll fast into the th. And so where are we up to? 36. Let's just set our timeline here before we go through the entire thing. And let us just hit play and watch this.
Weevil.
You see that? There's real snap going on. Obviously, changes on the eyes, changing on the mouth sides, etc. That's all still stepped. But this main action on the jaw that we see going has got real punch in it. And that there is what we're trying to maintain. So let's go through the rest of our, curve here for the jaw and start working in all of this stuff. Some of these aren't huge moves, so they may be quite subtle. You don't want to pull handle too much, otherwise you wind up with overshoot or undershoot. It can often be helpful just to zoom in on areas like this, as you can make sure that you're getting them, reasonably nicely configured without making a horrible mess of the curves. Again, this one over here is a m-p sort of sound. You can see that, let me get those two in frame, shall we? We've slunk out of that one and fasting into the next one, or travelling fast into the next one there. But then we are coming up to the m-p sound here. This is the spinach. So again, keeping that going fast out here from that one and slowing into the p is good. And of course slowing it out of the p to hit the hard I for inich. Look along the rest that we've got going on here. That's the I coming out to the n, really banging the teeth together almost there to hit the N. Of course, holding it slightly before snapping out to the next point, which is here. Yeah, so we've got the spinach. Yeah, and we can perhaps just put a little bit of overroll there, because that's the ch, so the jaw can just be softening there slightly. And of course, we've got that sort of relaxed taking a breath, haven't we? So this can really just smooth out. That doesn't need to be choppy here. Why? Because of course he's not really speaking. So we can just get a nice smooth curve, roll out there, coming into his breath, which is pretty much flat and something like that. Really nice and smooth. Where are we going after that? Then we're into the j. So we really want to, of course, take that and break hard into it. Something like this. We keep it held at the j before, of course, breaking out hard into the next shape here. I need to come in a bit tighter to really see that. Yeah, okay, that's good. And we're coming some. So let's come slow out of that, bang into here quite swiftly, come fast back out of that because we're coming into another m. So let's hold that there, hold it again there, fast into an open point. There's another m over here, so again that'll be nice and smooth, and we'll click quickly out of that one there. Then of course we're coming across the I's, no. Okay, so this is, at the minute looks a bit weird, but if we come into it swift there, hold, and then swift here, you get this sort of double bounce on the jaw. Again, if you do the finger thumb, feel your own jaw whilst you're talking, you can feel a few of these sort of bam 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 double bounces. That's what we're getting here. Again, hold it slow out, coming to the next point, keep it fast in. We just sort of keep up this shark fin pattern on these next ones here as well, like that, nice and easy. Now this is going straight up, so do we want a double bounce? What do we want here? Let's have a look at it. Yeah, see, that's going for the time. And back into another m. So once again, I'll double bounce this just for now. We can see how it looks. And then of course, change it later if it looks, or if it winds up looking wrong. So there we go, little double underbounce there, and roll out here. And this one we come into hard, and we also take out of hard because we're coming to another m. Yeah. There we go. And then of course we've just got this soft smooth action at the end where the jaw is relaxing. So let's see all of that played back.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time. We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
It is also going to be helpful at this stage to have a look at the thing playing back once again in slow motion here.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
What I think we can really see from that is that there are some points that aren't really lining up so well, mainly at the later end here. So some of those curves that we've done, we'll probably want a bit of tweaking done to get them somewhat, cleaned up a little bit here and there. However, we're also in the situation, of course, where we've got some stuff, namely the jaw, in, constant motion, whilst other things are, of course, in stepped motions. As such, what's going to aid us is to, go a bit further, bringing things out, and then we can really refine. First thing I'm going to do is to look again at the jaw, which has, of course, some actions occurring here, both on its X and Z as well. Just pushing it off side to side or in and out for the odd bit of asymmetry here and there. Now, we don't need to Bezier those actions. Well, maybe we do, but not so much often, you'll find. So I'm just going to go TCB spline on them. And I'll just set them all to 1. And I'll just look for any little clicks that's giving, mainly here on the X channel we see. I can just sort of tidy that up there. I can backswing the curve here to give, more ease in out to that point. And I see that there's another one over here as well, hiding on the X at the 0 position there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out just with my mouth controls here. Let's check them for any holds that we really need to put on. Again, that's going to be the W, or coming into the W here. That's our little breath. So let's get those controls and key them off. I'm going to key them off there at 20 to hold them in position there. Now he's going to hold the spinach here for a little bit, so I'll say that's to 60. But he'll probably have started to relax out of that a bit sooner, so I'm going to take this frame that we've currently got at 70 and I'm going to copy that to 65 for both of those, so he comes out of that a little bit earlier there. Most of this can be nice simple drifts between those positions that we're seeing there. And then I also want to do the same for these controls here, the actual lip controls, which will have some hold points along the way as well. See that the first one is really here when we're getting into the R sound. So I'll hold them here at 31 since that's still the B sound there. Then we had, of course, the spinach thing again. I said I was working that out, didn't I? So let's hold them here at 60 and let's take that frame there at 70 and let's copy that again at 65, same as we did for the right and left mouth controllers there. Then we see a shift coming in here, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, just for say's sake. Hold them there. Then we've got another M, P sound here. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've currently got a frame somewhere for them, so let's just hold them there before coming into that. If it needs a tighter timing, we can work that in a bit. Those are okay. Then we see we're getting into quite a shape here. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's hold them at that point, shall we? And of course we're coming into a bit of a thing there. That's a few frames. We can handle that drift because we'll tween that as we need to. And otherwise we look pretty good. So let's take those controls then that we've got done now. Let's get all of their positions here into our graph. And we'll also use TCB spline on these guys. So throw them over to TCB and let's just start out with a tension of 1 on everything. Now we can give this a play through and see how it's looking.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, so we see there in slow motion, it's a little drifty, but we'll bring it back up to 100% and let's just go back to the beginning. can see how it plays like this.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, looking better now. We see that some of those problems that we introduced from putting a Bezier curve onto the jaw have sort of, cleaned up a little bit, but there's still a couple of places that are, somewhat out of whack. We sort of at this point wind up in quite an interesting situation, because what we're really seeing, I think, when, we look at this now, is our animation is, it's sort of starting to look worse, at least in places, than it did when we were just operating on stepped keys, It's, gone a bit wrong, or seemingly so. This is something that's not at all uncommon when, working through animations, not just facial animation, by the way, but of course any type of animation, is that you can hit this sort of valley in your workflow where, things start out looking good, then they start looking bad, and the trick is to, bring them back to looking good again. The best piece of advice I can offer is that when this does happen, don't panic. Ideally, you will have reached this situation by trying to follow a workflow, follow a plan for where you're going. And so the best thing to do is to just try and stay on plan. Consequently, that is what we're going to do here. So we're not going to, start fiddling too much, start getting crazy with in-betweens or going mad at our curves too much to try and fix things. We're just going to continue along. So the first thing I want to do then is to, take a look at these curves that I have got here, because of course we just set them all to 0, and yet we see that that's given us some little, lumps or shelves there. So I'm just going to continue, as it is, and just clean up these curves first. So I'll take out, any little problems that have occurred like this along the way. Now this here, by the way, I'm doing the, left and right mouth controllers. So just cleaning up the curves for these to make sure that they are better than just pure tension 1 curves. Putting a little bit of back and counter twist here and there in places to work things out, try and keep them nice and smooth. Of course I need to look at different channels along the way, try and ensure that I'm getting these nice and clean and smooth, because of course the more smoothness that I can get in here, at least on these particular controllers, then the easier it will be to start diagnosing larger problems, larger scale problems when we get a little further along and into more of the detailing. So just finish picking through these. Obviously not going to show you every last little adjustment I make, because we've seen this sort of thing, plenty of other times, more or less. These curves are really no different to any other, sort of TCB work that we've done at other stages in the previous videos here. So with that complete, let's just check it out again.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, right, so looks a little bit better now by this point, but clearly there's still a few problems scattered about. So let's try and see exactly what they are. And to help with that, we're just going to go back to the 50% speed here, which is actually going to help an awful lot. Now, actually, I say that I already know what a good couple of them are. If we look here, here's a clear one. It's in the sometimes. Yeah, you see that awful thing that's going on there? Right, what's happening here is we go into the I of IMS, okay, but look at it, it's just too fast. We're coming out of the M, straight into that, straight back again. So that's just too fast, basically. So let's get that jaw back. Okay, and that's going to be the Y position. This is Y, of course, it's that bouncing out of that point. Why? Well, I'm holding my M too long here. So even though I humped these over there, like a pair of boobies, they should probably actually go the other way. So you see some, like the P, that really didn't want to be like this. It wanted to be held on the mouth closed position. But this wants its hold in the R or I position, so we get this sort of valley across. Let's see how that just looks.
sometimes
Aha, okay, that's looking better. Looking better already. Let's see it again.
sometimes
Good. Once more, just for luck.
just sometimes
Okay. Looking much better there. What I think I want to do, if you look at this, you can see it's still quite long, and it sort of makes him do this munch. You see that with the munch of the lips there? I can simply take care of this just by bringing these handles here out more, like that. That'll keep him in the eye just a little bit longer. Yeah. There we go. That's slightly gentler now. Let's just see it again.
sometimes not
That's more like it. Just once more.
just sometimes
Now also the sum here, okay? That again, single frame. This is going to be one of those occasions where actually it's going to help me to have a little bit more similar to ease in, ease out here, so as that is slightly held just that little bit longer. You see that we still get a fast up and into the hold of that But you see we now tweak off into it just that little bit more cleanly there. So let's just run that back.
just sometimes not all time
Good, okay. Now we see, of course, we've got a similar thing with the I'm at the end. Time. Not looking good there. So let's just race across. Once again, see, it's this pointed valley that I've created. So let's bring that out here. Okay. And let's go hard and fast into the M. And we're doing that, of course, because we've already got a hold of the M across here, so it makes sense to, of course, come into it harder and faster like this. So we get this, you know, double bank shark fin sort of pattern. Let's see it now.
not all time
There, better already. So let's just see the whole thing once through, shall we?
we will see spinach just sometimes not all time
There we go. Okay, clearly better now. We can take a look at it at full speed just if we want to make sure of how it's looking now.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Okay, yeah, definitely looking a good deal better. I'm going to go back down to the 50% speed. Now, something else that's giving us a little problem is, of course, the mouth corners, which so far we haven't done anything to. They're still acting stepped, you see. So some of these shapes are holding longer than they should. You see that round sort of tweak on the mouth corners holds all the way through here and then just snaps out at that point for that. What is that? The puff or pinch, I think. So what we want to do is grab those controls there. And again, let's look for holds on them. So let's see, what have we got? That's the W. So let's take that there. I mean, that's 4, right? Perhaps even 3 would be good for that. So there, I'll hold it at 3. Back to the E. Now in the O, which is around there, I want to keep it somewhat held. So let's hold them there. Now we come into the E. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's from the th to the E, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4. We can let that drift across there. Now, of course, we're changing the shape a little bit, but then it's collapsing down into the P by that point, because it's coming out of the S, isn't it, for spinach. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to take this frame 51 and I'm going to copy it to 48, so it comes out of that slightly sooner there, ready to form the P like that. A little short 3-frame change there, that'll be okay. And of course it's a long hold right through till about here. When you see their rotation just softens off slightly, we're softening off the curve there. And of course we see the drop of the shape of the mouth there, so I reckon I'm going to be holding these up until about, see, probably till 59, okay? And then by 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll already have dropped that. So let's go to 70 and copy that key to 63. Okay, so that's dink, 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 dink. Then 70, it's still there. 80, we've got a little bit of change. So, of course, he takes a breath there. So let's come 1, 2, 3 before then and hold them. No change by this point. Little change coming into here. That's the sum of sometimes, isn't it? So let's find that which is around there. Let's say 89, so let's key it off there. That's a nice halfway in between. Then we have the I of Ims. Let's wait until his lips start to part, shall we? So we'll key it there at 94. Then we're back into another M sound. Let's again hold that at 99, so a 2-frame hold. And we're just a couple of little frames over there, which is fine. Then we're coming into the knot. I think I'll leave that on a longer drift. We can tween it if we need to. Again, longer drift there. I'll let that tween up afterwards. We'll see how it looks. Same again here. The time, so we've only got again little 3-frame gaps there. Okay, so that's how I'll have those. So let's take them all. TCB spline, set them all to 1. And then let's just check through them for any sort of, opportunities for smoothing like that, or any little shelves or, little lumps or bumps that we might have introduced there. And I think that all looks pretty good-ish, at least. So let's have a little playback and see then how we're doing now, shall we?
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Definitely looking better now. Let's see it again.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
And then just at full speed for luck here.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Much better now. So it may not entirely be perfect just yet, but I'm just going to leave those last little details and clean them up as part of the, polishing phase. The next bit I'll move on to then is, continuing to take some of this out of stepped and into full motion. And you can see I've done that here with the head and neck. We've now got these on the go. You can just see the curve there. I've done very little, special to it at all. It's just a little bit of, follow through, overlap, the usual suspects that we have going on for these sorts of, movements like this. You can see I've added the odd little tween here to sort of roll the head under and up when he does these moves. But that is literally it. The only thing that does jump out at me, however, now that I get into this, is, of course, the spinach bit here, where he's nodding. So, of course, if we just see that again...
We will see spinach.
I don't know. For me, it just doesn't play that well. So what I think I'm going to do is these nodding frames there. Well, that would actually probably include those as well, really, wouldn't it? I'm just going to take them out because, honestly, I don't think I need them. So we can tighten up all of those guys there. And we can also just make sure that they're, broadly in line as they should be, like that. And perhaps this arrival frame here, I'm just going to bring out just a touch there, and we'll see how that looks
just
instead.
Sometimes, not all the
Hopefully
time.
a little better.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, see, that does work better. So sometimes, you do things, they seem like a good idea, but you later discover, actually, it wasn't such a great idea.
Spinach.
So let me just see the throw down into spinach, see if that needs tweening. I did give it a little tween there, but actually, no, I think that's pretty good. I might just alter the bank like that, throw it over just a little swifter on his bank there. Yeah, okay. I think that works quite well. Let's just see it once again, playing back.
Spinach.
Yeah.
Just sometimes, not all the time.
But the little shake there still works pretty good.
Spinach.
So we like
just
that.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Any which way, we can really see our, animation now starting to take much fuller shape. So let's work on these eyes, because they're all currently stepped. Now eyes, really, of course, one of those other areas of the face, like the jaw, that you don't often want drifting, maybe once or twice if somebody's rolling their eyes, you know. However, usually they tend to dart, and dart pretty quick, and also they lead. You tend to look before your head has either moved at all or certainly finished moving. So this frame here at 29, I can't even remember what I was doing at 23 now with the eyes there, so let's just get rid of it, and let's move that 29 frame down to 23, so he's already looking. Okay, maybe that's a bit early. Let's have it there, shall we, at 25. And then what we'll do is at 23, we'll have it keyed and held there. Or rather, we'll just take frame 1 and make sure that that's at 23. So there we go. We get that little turnover of the eyes occurring there. Very swiftly, 2 frames. Can be 3 on these longer looks. I often go for 2. Now there we've got him looking down into the little shamed spinach. Again, I want to bring that in earlier, so I'm going to have it at 51, and 2 frames beforehand is where I'll have held it. Now this is just a short little dart, literally like that, and 1 frame isn't so bad at all, so I'm going to key that for a 1 frame. Again, that little look back, once again I'll do it as 1 frame, but I'm going to do it just a frame slightly earlier, I think, so I'll shove that across to there and rekey the 79 there. Now this, the looking up, again I want to be leading slightly with that. I'm going to have that coming in by 87. Yeah, that seems good. And 1 2 earlier, we'll key that there. The knot, I'm going to have that at the 108, I think, so I'll just shove that across and we'll hold it at 106 there. And now we're starting to look back up. I think that's a good place for it to be, so 1 2 earlier. I'll key those eyes again. Right, let's set them all to TCB spline. These can certainly go to flat at 0, or flat at 1 I should say, since they really don't need any kind of, you know, in between or follow through. That's highly uncommon on eye moves. And so we can see the eyes now darting around.
We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time. We both eat spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Mostly just a little better timed in there, more than anything else. Obviously very quick moves, so we don't see a huge amount of. However, what we are going to have difference on is going to be the eyelids. These guys shall need to be working slightly differently. Again, there's a 23 there. I can't remember what that was. It doesn't look necessary anymore, so I'm just going to take it out. However, this is where we want to be looking differently. So there's the eyes looking to camera there. So it's at this point that I'm going to have reached this eyelid pose. That is 1 frame after the eyes there. Perhaps actually I'm going to go 2 frames after the eyes. We'll see this Y in a short moment. Again, I'm just looking at where the eyes are reaching their positions for timing in these eyelid moves now. So the eyes are held there, and then they go 1, 2 across to their move position. So again, I'll go, let's say 1 after that. That'll be my new eyelids position there. Actually, possibly 1 later, so 53 for that one. And we look up here. Yeah, that still looks like a good position for the eyelids to be at that point, I think. 89 is fine. Here we're going into the knot. That's where the eyes hit. So I think there at 109. Then finally at the end here, the eyes are hitting there at 137. So I'll put the eyelids hitting at 138. Okay. Currently, not a huge amount of difference. All I've done is just change the point at which those eyelids hit their poses. What obviously we want to have happen is for the eyelids to move. And what we're going to do is something, again, very common in facial animation. We're going to put blinks on the eye movements. Now, timing a blink is a funny little thing. There's just sort of a couple of formulas that we can use for blinks. So we'll look at actually having a couple of them here. So here's what I'm going to do with the first one, right? Here we've got the eyelids open. I'm going to come 2 frames beforehand, 3 frames for 5. Okay, at this point I'm going to key the eyelids there in that position. Why 5? Here's why. I'm going to go 1, 2. At this point I'll close the eyes. 1 later I'm going to hold them closed, and then 1, 2 they will open again. Come to the next one. That's when he looks down for the little shameful spinach look. Here I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3, 4, key them there, and then at the 2 frame here I'm going to have them fully closed. So 2 frames, 2 frames. Now over here at the little, shameful spinach bit, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and key them there. And at the 1, 2, so the halfway mark there, I'll have them closed. Over here, when we're coming back up, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. This time key them there, but go 1, 2, key them closed, but have no hold. Here, we'll do 4 again. So 5, 1, 2, or 105, sorry, 2 forwards, close them, 1, 2, back to open. And then finally here we'll do a 1, 2, 3 like that, put the hold there, 1 frame after we'll close them. Now let's take all of these eyelid keys, whatever we got here, let's just make them all TCB spline, flatten them all out completely, and we can really look at any one channel since they've all sort of keyed up together, and you see the different patterns that we've got. So we've got the close, hold closed and then open, close, bang straight to open, and that's pretty much what all the others do with slightly different timings. And what you'll see when we play back,
we will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
Is that you get this different feeling on the different
spinach.
blinks.
Just sometimes, not all.
So this one here, this is a slow blink there. Takes 2 frames to close, 2 frames to open, but you've got this hold of 1 frame where the eyes remain shut for a full, 1 frame spacing. This is good on head turns like this, slow easing head turns. It's a slow blink. Here we get the medium blink, 1, 2 to close, 1, 2 to open. Over here we've got a rear weighted medium blink, so it's 1, 2 to close, but then we have a slow 1, 2, 3 to open. This works well when you're coming into a wide-eyed pose. In this case the upper eyelids are opening wider, the brow is going up, and so on, so that works as a nice sort of slinky eye blink on there. Then we've just got the normal, 2 point, and then we've got a fast blink here. A fast blink is just a single frame to close and then 1, 2 frames to open. This is normally the fastest blink you would do. You can do a 1 closed, 1 open, very fast. But normally the majority of the time you'll find that when a person blinks, you sort of need to see it, shot in slow motion or something. But you'll find that the eye snaps shut quicker than it opens again. So the majority of the time, and certainly when I'm just scattering odd blinks into facial animation, not necessarily when a character's moving their head or doing dialogue, but just to keep them alive, the one I use the most is this, the fast blink. 1 frame to close, 1, 2 to open. And then if I'm trying to emphasize a blink, with a character sort of blinking and then popping their eyes open as if going, you what? You what? Eyes closed to open, then I'll use this blink with the hold in the middle. So that gives you the extra frame of holding that helps sort of accentuate the character sort of holding their eyes, that brief second.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
The last thing to work on the, little tweens and so forth then is the brows. And as you can see, very few keyframes here. And what we're largely doing is just, keeping a nice bit of slow in, slow out between the moves. Holds, of course, since the brows only tend to move when we're actually shifting, the expression fully. They are quite mobile, they are quite expressive, but they're not dancing around all over the place. You'll also notice, of course, that we do the odd little bit of, preemptive movement, anticipation, overlap, follow through, stuff like that. So let's see if I can find where I put one in here. Here we go. Here's a nice little one. You see they come up a bit and then they come down like that. Yeah, they're in this sort of, cockeyed, one brow up, one brow down. They both go up and they both crunch down there. And there's just a tiniest little bit of dodge overlap occurring there as well. And then over here again, they pinch in and then they shoot up. And we get this little overlap again as they settle right there at the end. And finally, what we have is just a couple of small tweaks and adjustments made on the mouth. I've really done very little here. Looking again over our mouth moves, I've done next to nothing to actually finalise it. All I've done is put in a little reshaping here where he takes a breath. I've brought the sides of the mouth in so it's not quite as wide. That way it doesn't look like a vocal pose. It does look more like a breath. But then we go into the the jaw. I've opened the jaw a little bit there, so I've added this extra tween here at 83, so we really get the jaw coming out before the s. And then finally at the end, all you can see I've done is when he comes to say just sometimes, not all the time, that final time, see he holds the M for a few frames before we relax the jaw here. And also I've opened the jaw less on the relaxing pose. And so if we watch this, first of all in slow motion here, and this is from our, obviously, our tracking or parented face camera, then we can see
we will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
There we go. Really nice. The mouth movements tie in to all of the sounds nice and properly, but it's not, oversold. We're not flapping around all over the place trying to animate every shape, every single sound, every letter of the word. And if we come to view from our main camera, and let's put it back to, full speed here, check it all out.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.
There we go, looking pretty good, pretty nice, pretty characterful, definitely alive,
not all the time.
And there you have it. So that really is facial animation. As you can see, there's very little that's different that we haven't already, dealt with in other situations. We see this way that, the same kinds of principles and techniques apply to bouncing balls, the way that they apply to pendulums, how they work on vehicles and full-bodied characters. We're seeing the same principles used again and again and again, just within, the context of creating different shapes, a different machine. And that's really all the face is. The only things that are really specific are those that we've mentioned. Hitting your shapes before the sound occurs, not animating every sound, every letter. And beyond that, what facial animation really boils down to is good posing, good communicative facial expressions. We talk with our faces, not just by making words, but also by, the facial expressions that we make. Good, strong poses are the key to good facial animation. That's where the appeal comes from. And of course, having that appeal, having that, sense of connection with the audience will, serve you much better than getting technically picture perfect animation in a keyframe sense. Otherwise, the only other tips I can give you, little movements of the head, which way they turn and look and bob their heads around, that helps communicate the character's mood and their thought process. And the eyes as well, especially the way that the eyes dart and where the focus and the attention of the eyes is directed. That really is key to telling us what is going on inside the character's mind and really bringing them to life. And when we're done, then here we have it.
We will see spinach. Just sometimes, not all the time.